Thank you very much, and welcome to the afternoon session, and thank you for your attention. Smart cities is something like a new term. It's something which, if you come from the mobile world, where mobility, we are heading into this direction, it's something like, oh, what do I have to do with smart cities, and what is really, that sounds really like a strict concept, and in the future of the cities, is this maybe the future of the city? I could probably talk, for 15 minutes about, wow, buildings, and this is 2,250. But really, 200 years from now, is it still just high-rises, a little bit higher, gray, cement, and because this is out of Star Trek, there's like some action and some fire and so on. On the other hand, maybe are smart cities really our only option? I was really pleased to hear from Hyperloop to say, well, if we have connected villages or smaller cities connected really with smart mobile concepts, then we can all live a little bit more in rural areas, more sustainable, and we can still be in 10 minutes in either downtown or so on. And didn't they promise us like telecommuting so that we can work from home in the countryside and our dachas or whatever? But now we are doing telecommuting at the local Starbucks, 100 meters from the headquarters. That's not really, I thought, what they promised. So if we think about smart cities, obviously, as you mentioned, it's big numbers. In the next, 2050, we will have 80% of the people live there. We will have 9 billion people, and there will be 1 trillion or more connected devices. And cities are already where the action is. We have creativity, we have people, we have everything comes together in an ecosystem where people do and mingle. But the first iterations of what smart cities is as a concept is something like this, probably what some people might have in mind. Big control rooms, a government or a local city administration goes to a tech provider and says, I need control, I need big monitors. In Rio, it was basically after a big flush of earthquake and so on. It was a very sensitive thing in front of the sports events. So government makes something with industry partners, and it's obviously done very, non-emotional, but very, strict and follows rules and whatever. Now we have Barcelona, probably one of the most famous smart cities in Europe, and they say, here the administration works together with architects, developers, maybe some industry partners as well, to say, how can we convert a whole area of a city which was industrial used, and now how can we make it modern? We bring universities, we bring clusters, and we bring a whole new ecosystem and make it physical attractive. It's still something which feels like top-down. Now, in New York, there are some applications where we have, connectivity, Wi-Fi, is something where Google, for example, they bought this Link New York as a system, and they started sidewalk apps. So big companies go into this, and now government maybe works together with media and say, hey, here's a new form of outdoor advertising, and so on. Amsterdam, let's do something about sustainability. We work with, the smart citizen kit, where they engage the citizens to do something about sustainability, take sensors, take data, and say, how can we engage the citizens and do something for our city where we live in? Another city, Copenhagen, famously, when they had the last climate conference, worked together with the MIT and developed the Copenhagen Wheel. Very famous, with one little red, cool designed bike, white bike with some red dot. All of a sudden, Copenhagen became, we are smart, we are sustainable. The bike is still not in operation. I think you can buy it now, and it's no longer with the MIT, it's a startup. But still, sometimes a symbol like this can make a whole city, first of all, part of attractiveness, and also focus some of the energy and the ideas to go into a certain direction and make a city attractive. Audi, last week in Barcelona, unveiled some of these pilots, for example. I was really impressed by this garage or parking system near Boston, where you heard it already, we can save time and really nice valet parking. It's also something where a government now starts to work with different industry partners. So no longer the tech providers who work on platforms, but now we're talking brands, we're talking mobility, car companies. Maybe we're talking, Procter & Gamble soon, and say, why don't they go and engage in cities? So I think there will be new players who are active, and not only of the car industry. But now if we really go into mobility, is the government really involved in these things? So I think this is where startups shine, the maker community, IoT people as well as citizens who say, I want this, I can use this, like get around. We heard about Uber and My Taxi and these things. We heard about the flotility device, which comes out of a startup and say, why don't we do this? And later you ask for rules or permission, but you don't wait for a government to say, we thought about it, here's the whole, you can apply to get a license or something. Basically, you push the limits. And I think this is where we are heading, that governments, as you know, notoriously slow, don't really drive this because we have to engage and we have to also create funnels or maybe a platform where startups can shine and basically do stuff livable in their cities without the government. So as you know, I'm from Hamburg, and Hamburg has this new Hafen City area, a big, huge development, I think second largest in Europe right now. If there's the Olympics, it might be, again, the largest development space. And there's all these new things, new cruise lines, new energy things, new theaters, the whole new, the Alp Philharmonie and so on and so forth. All of the stuff is happening, but the magic here seems to be that there's a whole ecosystem developing, that the government actually starts to talk with all the different people, and that people start to talk and engage among themselves despite having the government. And I use the term government loosely for any kind of local or administrative people. So I think this is where the magic happens. If you have an ecosystem, people start, all of a sudden there's momentum and one gives to the other. And this is a couple of these examples I just want to show. This is the sort of typical thing which you would expect. One of the first things some big company says, a city says, oh, we have a bridge. There's like tons of sensors and the harbor people. And well, what's the benefit? Hamburg is always, oh, the harbor, oh, not again. But, well, if they can manage the traffic better and there's no congestion in the harbor, well, I don't have congestion in Eppendorf or Mitte or wherever I am. So this is maybe an indirect benefit for the citizens, but there's a benefit. And there's industry partners and ecosystem which actually took over, and there's really right away benefit they can see and so on. So a very neuralgic point. I can talk about this for longer. But one interesting as well is this is a... Okay, the bridge is measuring basically all of the, how much traffic is there, how much is the tilt shifting, so to say, what is the temperature, even some of the aerial data. But the most important thing is that this bridge is, you have the Kölbernbrücke and the second other bridge. There's trains go through this, ships go underneath, and cars. And you have to basically see that the congestion collect some of the data so that you can predict that less congestion happens and so on. But we can ask Mirko, and he will have a whole story later about all of the different sensors. So this is a first-time collaboration of the MIT as an external lab together with Hafen City University, where they actually go and say, okay, how can education and R&D, research, scientific community work together on behalf of the data which they get generating to develop new kinds of, let's say, is this part green enough? Can we put a park here and then within 100 meters you have a livable city and so on? So very progressive. They use this model in different cities, and this is the first time they will use it in Europe actually together. And this is also very much attractive for a city to get the scientific data and work with. So there's a lot of more things which were happening. So there's 2 websites you can maybe check it out. But most importantly, what I'm really interested in is the smart citizen. Because if you really take this top-down approach and take a city, a lot of the people and my friends from the last couple of years where we did mobile said, yeah, but smart city, I have nothing to do with smart city. So, and I say, well, if you take something, you press a button, magic happens, and taxi arrives, people still think they're in the business of an app. But I say the whole app business is over. We are talking impact on society. And especially the people who drive mobile apps and started the mobility trend, I think this is all mixing. Are we talking mobile apps? Is mobility, is it cars, or is it mobility much more in our heads? So that you are moving around and you can really apply your knowledge and really have a bigger impact on the city. And I want to talk about impact, especially now also with my panel. So this is an example some of you know, or most of you maybe, and say, oh, these are mobile devices which are in the city, and directly you can see where do you use asthma controls, and where at a certain point, at a certain crossroads, for example, kids come from school, at 1 o'clock, and all of a sudden, everybody presses on this street their asthma control things. So maybe exactly at 1 o'clock, that factory opens the gates and just clears the air conditioning, and all the kids run around. So with simple data like this, you can really help to improve lives. And I think this is what we're talking about. You know, this is mobile, it's a sensor, it gets smaller and smaller and smaller. And now we're talking that this is something which can really apply for life. And I have another example, which is really great and touching and so on. So this is Torben. He's a patient in the university clinic in Eppendorf. And together, Cisco, with their industry partners, basically said, how can we help with video conference and all the technology we have and really make an impact on this life? And Torben, unfortunately, has cancer. He's 3 months in a hospital. And within the 3 months, normally, you are just in quarantine. So you cannot talk to your friends. You cannot talk to anybody outside. But here you see he is still part, with his laptop, with a live video conference, he's part of the class. So first of all, it's not about the mom or the parents who say, oh, we have to entertain our boy 3 months because he can just watch TV and read comics and play games. Actually now, no, you have to go to school. Well, you don't really go, but you do it from your bed. You have to get up at 8, you have a purpose in life, and you are still connected with your friends, and you can really be, and you might even be the coolest kid in class because now you were with this little robot in the class. So more we can talk about this. And this led to another example, which I want to talk about. But what really strikes me is that we are starting now to see more citizen engagement platforms. And it always sounds so like, am I a citizen? In Germany, it's even more boring, Bürgerbeteiligung. This sounds like, oh, hippie, and who goes to a Bürgerbeteiligung? But I'm really thinking if we have startups, if we are people who want to change some of the environment and change the world and so on, this is where it starts. It might not start with 1 million people, but if it starts with 10 people in Berlin who say, you know what, I really want to do this. I can do it. I can program. I can make an impact on life. Well, how can I connect with people? There's this, most of you know this, the POC people, and through the WeShare environment, the whole sharing economy. These guys say, why don't we open up and we make this open source? And how can we be a maker city, or how can we make our future? And I think the German word, so mitmachen, says this maybe a little even better. And really spend some time and think, what are the things we can do as a maker, as a programmer, as a really creative person, which can impact, and where can we do something together, again, despite government, or don't wait for anybody to say, why don't we do this? Actually, this comes from the bottom up. And this is something I want to close with, and it's a little preview. We asked Mirko to talk about it more. So there's an idea, and this is sort of a world premiere we can show later. How can we kind of hack a system? How can we see an impact on society to something which happens now? We have obviously much more new citizens in our cities. Refugees come from all over the world, and all of a sudden, our life changes. Their life changes, there's more people, there's stress, and so on. And there's some neuralgic point, especially when you talk about medical situations, and I think you're going to be impressed what we can show you in a little bit. So, thanks for the opening attention.